that division. You got Scott Quinn, Carl Frampton, Guillermo Rigondeaux.
I'm gonna get the opportunity, boy. You working your ass off, don't you?
Hey, that's what we do. That's what we do.
Dante's Boxing Nation. I see it, baby. Y'all the man.
That's what it is.
I love what you're doing for boxing.
Thank you, man.
Don't stop. Keep on going strong. Keep on going hard. A lot of big fights coming this year. A lot of big fights.
Hey everyone, it's Angelica Curtis. You're watching Dante's Boxing Nation. This is Angelica Curtis. Follow me on Instagram, Angelica Curtis. See you soon.
I just want to ask you about this reception, man. You predicted that it'll be about 700,000 pay-per-views. Just looking at the atmosphere right now, you still believe that or what?
I think it's gonna go higher.
Higher?
I think you take Bradley and Manny. They're capable of doing 700,000-800,000, and I think my Hispanic undercard, the no Trump undercard, is going to pull in a lot of viewers.
Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? So it was just recently reported that according to Bob Arum, the projected numbers for the Pacquiao versus Bradley fight are anywhere between 400,000 and 500,000. And Bob Arum said, and I quote, "That's not good." Now you guys just watched the clip that I played and you seen Bob Arum. He clearly expected the numbers to be anywhere from 700 to 800,000. So if these numbers turn out to be half of what he expected, yeah, that's not a success, not at all. You know, what's interesting is I believe that on the radio show, we basically play, The Price is Right, trying to estimate what the numbers would be. And I believe I said that they would be somewhere around 500,000, 400, 500,000. I thought they would probably get somewhat of a bump from 300,000 to maybe 400,000 or 500,000. Maybe those, gay comments actually helped the numbers. I don't know. But no matter what the case is, these are not good numbers. Now, what makes these numbers even worse is the fact that Mayweather versus Berto even did better numbers than Pacquiao versus Bradley. Do you guys know how bad that makes these numbers look? Do you guys know how good that makes Floyd Mayweather's numbers look? Let me break it down to you guys. When Floyd Mayweather fought Andre Berto, Floyd Mayweather, he no longer cared. Honestly, he didn't care what the pay-per-view numbers were going to be because Floyd had already broke all the records. He had a 6-fight deal with Showtime in which he fought the bigger, younger, stronger Canelo Alvarez, who, by the way, was 14 years younger than him, 15 pounds bigger than him, undefeated at a higher weight class, a unified champion, and Floyd Mayweather dominated him, right? Then, after, of course, so many fans said that Floyd was afraid of Manny Pacquiao, he fought Pacquiao, dominated Manny Pacquiao, right? He fought Robert Ghost Guerrero coming off of his biggest win. He fought Victor Ortiz coming off of his biggest win, right? He fought Maidana, who was nearly 20 pounds bigger than him. Gave Floyd Mayweather all that he could handle. Turned out to be one of Floyd Mayweather's toughest fights of his career. Fought him twice. So when Floyd Mayweather fought against Andre Berto, he had already accomplished everything. That was just a farewell type of fight, right? So the fact that Floyd Mayweather, he can pick what fans perceived as the worst opponent to fight against, right? The fight that nobody wanted to watch. When Floyd Mayweather picks the least attractive opponent to fight, he still does better numbers than Manny Pacquiao fighting against one of the best opponents that he's ever faced. I mean, how do you guys explain that? How do you explain Floyd Mayweather still doing better numbers in a fight that you guys said was so terrible? It was so awful for Floyd to take that fight. How does he still do better numbers than Manny Pacquiao against Tim Bradley? That just goes to show you that even at Floyd Mayweather's worst, or I mean, because the perception is Andre Berto was like, you know, the worst opponent or whatever. Not that he was, but that's the perception by the decafs. How do you explain that? You tell us that nobody wants to watch this fight. In fact, Yahoo Sports, they actually had the nerve, and I may put the graphic up or the image of the article, but they actually came out with an article right after Floyd Mayweather beat Andre Berto, and they titled the article, and I don't have the image up right now, but basically they titled the article, "Nobody Watches Mayweather versus Andre Berto." So the question is, how come they didn't use that same title for Golovkin fighting against David Lemieux, who did damn near 3 times less numbers than Floyd Mayweather versus Andre Berto did? Probably just a coincidence, right? Yeah, we know what time it is. Do you think Yahoo Sports is going to title their article that when these numbers finally actually come out? Pacquiao versus Bradley? You think they're going to say that? Nobody watched Manny Pacquiao versus Tim Bradley. Of course they're not going to do that. Of course not. You know, when it comes to these decafs, they kind of remind me of drunk, ignorant people. You know, that drunk person who talks a little too much and they say some shit that they can't take back and then they regret that shit the next day? Well, that is very analogous to a decaf, because a decaf, they speak with emotion, they speak with anger, they speak with rage. They do not speak with logic. And 9 times out of 10, they end up shooting themselves in the foot and saying some shit that comes back to bite them in the ass. And saying that Floyd Mayweather's numbers against Andre Berto were so horrible is a perfect example. Because now Manny Pacquiao, who fights a much better opponent than Floyd fighting against Andre Berto, still does worse numbers than Floyd Mayweather. That means at Manny Pacquiao's best, he can't even beat Floyd Mayweather at Floyd's worst. That is exactly what that means. Can you guys imagine the pay-per-view numbers that Mayweather versus Bradley would have done? And with the promotion, I'm gonna tell you, those numbers would have probably cracked 2 million, right? I mean, it would have did well over 1 million. We already know that. I think a Bradley versus, or a Mayweather versus Bradley fight would have cracked at least 2 million, right? But, you know, like I said, it really doesn't matter. Whatever it cracks, we know it would have been way better numbers than Pacquiao versus Bradley. And I mean, if you guys look at the pay-per-view contrast when it comes to Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao facing the same opponents, Floyd Mayweather has always done way better numbers than Manny Pacquiao. I mean, when you look at Mayweather versus Oscar De La Hoya, that fight, it broke all records. When Manny Pacquiao fought against Oscar De La Hoya, I think it was like somewhere around 1 million. I mean, I would usually look it up, but I didn't look it up. I know it was somewhere around 1 million. And I know that Mayweather versus De La Hoya did over 2 million, broke all the pay-per-view records. So there's really no contest when it comes to who is the pay-per-view king on top of who's the best fighter of this generation. Now I want to talk about, in hindsight, what Pacquiao versus Crawford numbers would have looked like, right? Because we've heard Pacquiao, I believe he said it, and other people said it. They said that, I think even Bob said it, that, it wasn't a big enough fight, Pacquiao versus Crawford. And now we see these numbers, projected to be 400 to 500,000. And realistically, those numbers can mess around and be 370,000, or they could be in the bottom 400s, but if Bob Arum is saying that the numbers are not good, expect it to be very close to 400,000 or even 350,000, right? So the question is, how is it even possible? If Bob Arum is telling me and telling the media that Terrence Crawford is the next big superstar in boxing, right? And Bob is not even planning on waiting until Crawford gets in the ring with Pacquiao to put him in a pay-per-view fight. Bob has so much confidence in Crawford being a star, he's willing to put him in a pay-per-view fight against Victor Posto. Nobody knows who Victor Posto is, right? So the question is, if Bob Arum has that much confidence, if you're willing to put Crawford in a pay-per-view fight with Victor Posto, why would you say Terrence Crawford versus Manny Pacquiao is not pay-per-view worthy? Not yet, because Crawford is not big enough. That logically makes no sense. It logically makes no sense. I can tell you guys right now, there is no doubt in my mind that Pacquiao versus Crawford would have did better numbers than Pacquiao versus Bradley, for a couple different reasons. For one reason is because Terrence Crawford is one of the hottest fighters on HBO right now. He's knocking out everyone. He's been praised by a lot of different, trainers and fighters, from Floyd Mayweather. Even Freddie Roach was praising Terrence Crawford at a point, right? And the fact that Manny Pacquiao would be going in there against a fighter, number one, on the coincidental list, but on top of him being on the coincidental list, it's a fighter that will most likely be just as aggressive as Manny Pacquiao, a guy who has the same type of firepower that Manny Pacquiao has, right? Just that sense of danger for Manny Pacquiao, and them not wanting him to possibly get hurt or knocked out by a fighter on the coincidental list, that suspense alone is going to elicit a lot of pay-per-view buyers. So guys, I don't buy it when I hear Bob Arum say that Terrence Crawford, or anybody say that Terrence Crawford wasn't a big enough draw, and they thought that, it was smarter to fight against Tim Bradley. I don't buy that at all. I heard Jim Lampley say that as well. Matter of fact, I remember, bias ass Jim Lampley, he said on some recent card, he said, a lot of fans, they thought that Pacquiao should have fought Crawford, but it turned out that, more people wanted to see Pacquiao versus Bradley. This is what Jim Lampley said, which is, complete, utter, ridiculous BS, right? I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, Bradley versus, or Pacquiao versus Bradley, it was definitely a decent fight, but we're talking about Pacquiao versus the future. Let me tell you why I believe we didn't get the Pacquiao versus Crawford fight. We didn't get the Pacquiao versus Crawford fight for the same reason we didn't get the Pacquiao versus Ruslan Provodnikov fight, when Ruslan Provodnikov was hot at the time and he was somewhat of a threat. We didn't get this fight simply because I believe Manny Pacquiao and Team Manny Pacquiao, they were looking for the safest pick out of all of the options. Okay? Manny Pacquiao, he had an option to fight Amir Khan, Terrence Crawford. They were even talking about Lucas Matisse, and I'm talking about, these recent negotiations for his fight that he just had. Or, of course, Tim Bradley. And Manny Pacquiao, I don't think it's a coincidence that he decided to pick the guy who is supposed to be known as, not being a big puncher, especially not compared to like Ruslan Provodnikov, right? It would seem that Manny Pacquiao, he chose the safe choice. Now, I mean, if you guys look at some of my previous interviews, I've done a lot of interviews with Bob Arum where he said it, and not just my interviews. Bob Arum, he was very vocal when it came to telling fans that he wants to make Pacquiao versus Crawford. He said it on multiple occasions. I truly believe this is the fight that Bob Arum wanted to make. And he pitched the idea to Team Pacquiao, and they said, no, we don't want to take that fight. That's what I believe happened, because it makes all the sense in the world for Bob Arum to basically, have Manny Pacquiao basically pass the torch to Terrence Crawford. Now, that's not to suggest that it's a guaranteed win for Manny Pacquiao or Terrence Crawford, but it's still a way to pass the torch. In a certain way, Floyd Mayweather, he passed, a torch to Canelo Alvarez to not necessarily be pound for pound the next king, but at least to be one of the stars in boxing, right? So the same thing would have taken place if Crawford would have got that opportunity to fight against Manny Pacquiao. He would have automatically became the new star, the new face of boxing, just like when Floyd fought against Oscar De La Hoya, right? So I truly believe that Team Manny Pacquiao, they turned that fight, and for good reason. For good reason, right? I mean, I can totally understand Manny Pacquiao turning that fight down. You're talking about, a guy who could switch from righty to lefty, a slick boxer, who has power, he has height, he has the confidence of an undefeated fighter. He's looked at as basically, at least top pound for pound number 3, if not the next pound for pound king, right? So no doubt about it, that's a lot to go up against for Manny Pacquiao, especially a guy who's not used to facing undefeated, slick, intelligent fighters with power, right? He's not used to that. But regardless if he's used to it or not, this is the reason why I believe this fight didn't take place. I believe this fight did not take place because Manny Pacquiao wasn't having it. I can't blame him that much for that. Because once again, there's no way you could sit over here, and I'm talking about Bob, there's no way you could sit over here and tell us that Crawford's not ready for pay-per-view, but you're putting Crawford on a pay-per-view card in this very next fight. And you're not doing it against a Manny Pacquiao, you're doing it against a relatively unknown Victor Postal. Only people that obviously know Victor Postal are serious boxing diehards, right? So that's what it is, man. That's what it is. Pay-per-view numbers are not looking really good for Manny Pacquiao or even Bob Arum, and it'll be really interesting to see what Manny Pacquiao does next. It'll be really interesting to see what he does next. I mean, this is not a big surprise. I expected numbers very similar to this. That's all I got for now. I'm on to the next one.